Welcome back to the Key Safety Talks YouTube channel.
Yes, welcome back, everybody.
We are keeping the safety conversation going strong with daily podcasts.
That's right.
And today, let's talk about something that quite literally keeps us grounded.
Yeah.
Walking and working surfaces.
It's safety. You know, it's more crucial than you might think.
Yeah.
You trip on a rug, slip in the shower,
Yeah.
maybe take a tumble down the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
Annoying, sure, but usually not life-threatening.
Right.
But those seemingly minor incidents are a gateway to a much bigger problem.
Oh, okay.
Did you know falls are a leading cause of both accidental and occupational deaths worldwide?
Okay, whoa, now that's a stat that makes you stop and think.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about bruised egos here, are we?
Not at all.
Okay.
To really grasp the gravity of the situation, pun intended, we need to look at the bigger picture.
Right.
Falls aren't just a personal health issue. They have huge economic and social impacts, too. Oh, wow.
Lost productivity, medical costs.
Yeah.
And the emotional toll on individuals and families.
Right.
It's a ripple effect.
So we're not just talking about preventing a few bumps and bruises. We're talking about saving lives and livelihoods.
Exactly. And the thing is, a lot of these falls, especially in occupational settings, are preventable.
Okay.
It's about understanding the science behind why falls happen.
Yeah.
And then applying that knowledge to create safer environments.
Let's unpack that a bit.
Okay.
I'm guessing physics plays a big role here, right?
It does.
Gravity is a pretty persistent force.
It sure is. And our sources really dive into this.
Okay.
Especially safety and health for engineers.
Yeah?
They've got this chilling graph
that
shows the relationship between deceleration distance and survivability. It's a stark reminder that the distance you have to slow down during a fall, the less likely you are to survive.
Okay, that's a powerful visual.
It is. It makes me think about those safety nets you see on construction sites.
Huh?
Those are all about increasing that deceleration distance, right?
Exactly. They're designed to absorb some of that impact energy and give your body more time to slow down, increasing your chances of survival.
So it's not just about preventing falls entirely.
Nope.
But also mitigating the damage if a fall does occur.
Right. It's a multi-layered approach to safety.
Okay.
And to really get into the nuts and bolts of preventing falls, we need to understand the two main culprits.
Okay.
Tripping and slipping.
Okay. Those sound pretty straightforward.
Right.
What's so complex about tripping over something or losing your footing?
It's more nuanced than you might think.
Okay.
Our brains play a fascinating role here.
Okay.
You see, our vision is pretty amazing, but it has limitations.
Okay.
We tend to focus on our intended path, not necessarily on every little detail of the ground in front of us. So if there's a slight change in elevation or a small object in our walking zone, our brains might not register it in time to prevent a trip.
So it's almost like our brains are setting us up for a stumble.
Yeah.
We're walking around on autopilot, assuming a clear path, and then bam, we trip over a stray pencil or a crack in the sidewalk.
It's a bit like that, yes.
Right.
And the thing is, these seemingly minor things can have major consequences.
Wow.
Changes in elevation as small as 1/8 of an inch can cause a trip.
Really?
And we often miss hazards at angles below our direct line of sight.
Wow. 1/8 of an inch?
Yeah.
That's barely noticeable.
It is.
So basically, we can't just assume the path is clear.
Nope.
We need to be actively scanning for those subtle changes in elevation or those sneaky little objects lurking in our walking zone.
Exactly. And it's not just about what we see,
Right.
but also about what we expect. Our brains are wired to predict what's coming next,
Right.
based on our past experiences. So if we're walking on a smooth surface and suddenly encounter a rough patch, our brains might not adjust quickly enough and we could lose our footing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's about being aware of our surroundings.
Yes.
Being mindful of potential hazards. And being prepared for the unexpected.
Exactly.
What about slipping?
Okay.
Is that all about the surface we're walking on?
It's a big factor, yes.
Okay.
It all comes down to friction, or rather the lack of it.
Right.
Smooth, polished surfaces offer less friction, making them more slippery.
Think of trying to walk on ice versus pavement.
Yeah.
Big difference in grip there.
Precisely. And then you add contaminants like water, oil, or grease.
Yeah.
And things get even more treacherous.
Oh,
They reduce the friction between your shoe and the floor, making it easier to slip.
It's like adding soap to an already slick surface.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even something as simple as a change from a dry to a wet surface can catch you off guard.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely had that happen.
Yeah.
Especially like on tile floors or something.
Yeah.
You don't realize it's wet, and then whoops.
Right. Our brains might not register that change quickly enough, and we could slip.
So awareness is key again.
It is.
Being mindful of those changes in surface conditions and adjusting our gait accordingly.
Right. And let's not forget about footwear.
Yeah.
The material and design of your shoes play a huge role in slip resistance.
Okay, so we need to be mindful of the surface, the contaminants A&D, our footwear.
Yes.
It's like a three-way dance of slip and fall factors.
Exactly. And when you combine those factors with human error, distraction, rushing, fatigue, you've got a recipe for potential disaster.
Okay, this is all starting to make sense.
Okay.
Now let's talk about real-life examples.
Okay.
Can you share some cases where these seemingly minor things led to major consequences?
Absolutely. There's a case in our sources about a worker on the 6th floor of a building under construction.
Oh, wow.
A piece of formwork for a concrete column failed.
Okay.
A seemingly small failure. But he lost his balance, fell, and tragically didn't survive.
That's a heartbreaking example of how a chain of events,
it is,
starting with something seemingly insignificant, can lead to a catastrophic outcome.
Absolutely. And it highlights the critical importance of having multiple layers of protection in place.
Right. So it's not just about individual vigilance.
No.
It's about creating a work environment where even if one thing goes wrong, there are other safeguards in place.
Exactly. And those safeguards are what we call engineering controls.
Okay. Engineering control.
Yep. Think of them as the built-in safety features of a building or work site.
Okay. What are some examples?
Well, guardrails are a prime example.
Guardrails, okay.
OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, has specific standards for guardrail height. Okay. They have to be at least 42 inches high for the top rail.
42 inches. Got it.
Yep.
Is there a reason for that specific height?
It's all about physics and the human body. The 42-inch height is designed to ensure that the average person's center of gravity stays below the top rail, even if they lean against it.
Right.
And that middle rail is there to provide an extra layer of protection, especially for shorter individuals or children.
Okay.
And that toe board at the bottom, that's to prevent objects from rolling off the edge.
So every element of a guardrail has a specific purpose.
It does.
All working together to prevent falls.
Yes.
It's a safety system, not just a random railing.
Exactly. And then you have safety nets, which are crucial when working at heights where the risk of falling is significant. They literally catch you if you fall, absorbing some of that impact energy and reducing the severity of the fall.
Kind of like a giant trampoline, but with much higher stakes.
That's a good analogy. Then there are covers for openings.
Okay, covers for openings.
These are essential for preventing falls through holes in floors, roofs, or walkways. Right. Think about skylights, for example. A worker could easily step on one and fall through if it's not properly covered.
And I imagine proper material storage is a big part of engineering controls as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Materials stacked haphazardly or too high can easily topple and cause a fall.
Right.
So proper stacking, securing, and labeling of materials is crucial.
Okay, so engineering controls are all about the physical modifications we make to the environment to prevent falls.
Yes.
But what about the human element?
Okay.
How do we address that?
That's where administrative controls come in.
Okay, administrative control.
These are the rules, procedures, and practices we put in place to manage human behavior and minimize risk.
So it's like the safety manual for human actions.
It is.
What are some examples of administrative controls?
Well, housekeeping is a big one.
Housekeeping.
Keeping walkways clear of clutter and obstacles, cleaning up spills immediately, and ensuring proper lighting in all areas. These are all crucial for preventing trips and falls. It's about creating a clean, organized, and well-lit work environment where hazards are minimized.
So basically, don't be a slob and create a tripping hazard for yourself or someone else.
Right.
A place for everything and everything in its place.
Exactly. And then there's training.
Okay.
This is absolutely vital for ensuring that everyone understands the potential hazards, knows how to use safety equipment properly, and follows safe work practices.
Right.
It's about empowering employees to be their own safety advocates.
Training is like giving everyone the knowledge and skills they need to navigate their work environment safely.
It is.
So we've got engineering controls, administrative controls, and training.
Yep.
It sounds like we're building a pretty solid foundation for preventing falls.
We are. But remember, every work environment is unique.
Okay.
And some areas require specific safety considerations.
Gotcha.
That's where we need to get even more granular in our approach.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Let's break it down.
Right.
What kind of specific environments are we talking about?
Well, stairs, for example.
Stairs, okay.
They seem simple enough.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of factors that can contribute to falls on stairs.
Right, like uneven steps or slippery surfaces.
Exactly.
What are some key things to consider when it comes to stair safety?
Consistency is key.
Okay.
You want the treads and risers to be uniform throughout the entire staircase.
Right.
This helps to prevent trips and stumbles as people get into a rhythm when climbing or descending stairs.
So no surprise steps that are taller or shallower than the others?
Nope.
And slip resistance is obviously crucial, especially on stairs.
Absolutely. You want a surface that provides good grip, even when wet.
Yeah.
And those little strips of non-slip material they often put on the edges of stairs, those are a great addition.
I've definitely seen those.
Yeah.
They're like a little extra insurance against slipping.
They are, and lighting is important too, right?
Right.
Especially on stairs where it's easy to misstep if you can't see clearly.
Yeah, you want to make sure the stairs are well lit, especially at the top and bottom, to prevent misstep.
You got it. And, of course, handrails are a must-have on any staircase.
Right.
They provide stability and support, especially for people with balance issues or who are carrying heavy objects.
Handrail's always a good idea.
Yes.
Okay, stairs checked.
All right.
What's next?
Ramps.
Ramps, okay.
They're essential for accessibility, but they also come with their own set of safety considerations.
Yes.
The slope of a ramp is critical.
Right.
It can't be too steep or too shallow.
There's a sweet spot for ramp incline.
There is.
Not too steep, not too shallow and slip resistant, just like stairs.
Exactly. You want a surface that provides good traction even in wet conditions.
Yeah.
And handrails are just as important on ramps as they are on stairs.
Right.
They provide stability and guidance, especially for people who might have difficulty with balance.
Okay. Ramps, got it.
Good.
Slip-resistant surfaces, proper slopes, handrails, the trifecta of ramp safety.
You got it.
Now let's talk about ladders. They always seem a bit precarious to me.
They definitely require extra vigilance.
Okay.
One of the biggest risks with ladders is using them at an improper angle.
Right.
If the ladder is too far away from the wall,
Yeah.
it becomes unstable and can easily tip over.
So there's a sweet spot for ladder placement.
There is.
Not too far from the wall.
Right.
What's the rule of thumb for getting that angle right?
It's called the 4-to-1 rule.
Okay, the 4-to-1 rule.
For every 4 feet of height you're climbing, the base of the ladder should be 1 foot away from the wall.
Okay, so if I'm climbing 16 feet up a ladder, the base should be 4 feet away from the wall.
Exactly.
Got it. That makes sense.
Good.
And what about inspecting the ladder before you use it?
Absolutely crucial.
Okay.
Always inspect the ladder before each use. Look for any cracks, dents, or loose parts.
Right.
A damaged ladder is an accident waiting to happen.
And no standing on the top rung.
No.
That's just asking for trouble.
Right. You want to maintain 3 points of contact with the ladder at all times.
Okay.
2 hands and 1 foot, or 2 feet and 1 hand.
So no fancy footwork or one-handed acrobatics on ladders.
Yep.
Safety first.
Exactly. And what about being aware of your surroundings when you're on a ladder?
Oh, good point.
It's easy to get tunnel vision when you're focused on climbing,
Yeah.
but it's crucial to be aware of your environment.
Right.
Make sure the area around the ladder is clear of obstacles and that there are no electrical hazards overhead.
Good point. It's all about creating a safe and predictable work zone around the ladder.
Yes.
So to recap ladder safety,
Okay.
proper placement, inspection before each use.
Yes.
3 points of contact, avoid overreaching, and be aware of your surroundings.
Exactly. And speaking of working at heights, let's move on to scaffolding.
Okay, scaffolding.
That's a whole other level of complexity.
It's like a temporary structure.
Right.
But the safety risks are very real.
They are.
What are some of the key things to keep in mind when working on or around scaffolding?
Well, first and foremost, scaffolding needs to be erected properly.
Okay.
It's not just a matter of stacking planks and hoping for the best.
Right.
There's a science to it, and it needs to be built according to the manufacturer's instructions and inspected by a qualified person before use.
So scaffolding assembly is a job for the pros, not for DIY enthusiasts.
Exactly. And just as important is knowing the load limits of the scaffolding.
Okay.
You can't just pile on as much weight as you want.
Right.
Overloading a scaffold is a recipe for collapse.
Right. So know the limits and stay within them.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing fall protection is a major concern with scaffolding as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Harnesses, lanyards, and safety nets are all essential components of a safe scaffolding system.
So scaffolding Proper assembly load limits and comprehensive fall protection.
Yep.
Got it. Now, what about elevated work platforms?
Okay.
Those seem like a safer alternative to ladders for some jobs.
They can be, yes.
Okay.
Elevated work platforms, or EWPs, like scissor lifts or boom lifts, can provide a more stable and secure working platform than ladders.
Okay.
However, they also come with their own set of risks.
Right.
Proper training on how to operate the equipment is essential.
Yeah.
You need to know how to move it safely, how to use the controls, and how to avoid tipping it over.
So just like with any machinery, training is crucial.
It is.
You need to know what you're doing before you get behind the controls.
Exactly. And even though you're on a platform, fall protection is still essential.
Right.
Workers should always wear harnesses and lanyards connected to a secure anchor point on the platform.
Okay, so elevated work platforms, proper training, fall protection, and always follow the manufacturer's instructions.
Right. And now for a seemingly small detail that can pose a big risk.
Okay.
Let's talk about skylights.
Okay, skylights. I can see how those could be a hazard.
Yes.
They're often made of glass or other fragile materials. And they're usually located on roofs where people might not be expecting them.
Exactly. Someone walking on a roof might not even see a skylight and could step right through it.
So what's the best way to prevent accidents involving skylights?
Skylights need to be clearly marked and protected.
Okay.
You can use guardrails or covers to create a physical barrier around the skylight,
Right.
preventing anyone from accidentally stepping on or through it.
So it's about visibility, awareness, and protection when it comes to skylight safety.
Right. And if work is being done near a skylight,
Yeah.
even with those protections in place, workers should always exercise extreme caution.
Okay, skylights noted.
Right.
We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From stairs to scaffolding to skylights.
Yep.
It seems like there's a potential fall hazard lurking around every corner.
There can be, yes, but the good news is that most falls are preventable.
Okay.
By understanding the hazards, taking the right precautions, and using the right equipment, we can significantly reduce the risk of falls.
And that's what this is all about.
It is.
Creating a safer work environment for everyone.
Exactly. Now, I know we talked about fall arrest systems earlier.
Right.
But I'd love to dig a little deeper into how those systems work.
Okay, let's do
They're
it.
like a last line of defense when all else fails, right?
Right.
Fall arrest systems are designed to stop you in midair if you do fall.
Right.
They're a critical safety net for anyone working at heights.
Okay, let's break it down.
Right.
What exactly are the components of a fall arrest system?
Think of it like a personal safety net.
Good.
You have the harness, which fits securely around the worker's body, the lanyard, which connects the harness to an anchor point,
Right.
and the shock absorber,
Okay.
which limits the force on the body during a fall.
So if you fall, the lanyard catches you, the shock absorber kicks in to soften the impact, and the harness distributes the force across your body,
Exactly.
preventing serious injury.
It's all about minimizing the damage a fall can cause. But it's crucial that these systems are properly selected, fitted, and anchored.
What do you mean by properly selected?
Well, the type of harness, lanyard, and shock absorber you need will depend on the specific work being done and the potential fall distance.
Okay.
For example, a worker on a steep roof will need a different system than someone working on scaffolding.
And properly fitted means making sure the harness is snug but not too tight, right?
Yes, and that all the straps are adjusted correctly.
Right.
A loose harness can slip off during a fall, and a too tight harness can restrict movement and cause discomfort.
And properly anchored means?
It means ensuring that the anchor point is strong enough to withstand the force of a fall.
Okay.
The anchor should be a structural element of the building or a specially designed anchor point that's been tested and certified.
Right.
Never attach a lanyard to something that could break away or give way during a fall.
That makes sense. It wouldn't do much good to have a fall arrest system if the anchor point fails.
Exactly. And there's another critical factor to consider: the calculation of the maximum allowable fall distance.
Wait, there's math involved?
Yeah. This calculation takes into account the length of the lanyard, the stretch of the shock absorber,
Okay.
and the height of the worker to determine the maximum distance they can fall before hitting the ground or another obstacle.
So you're basically figuring out how much rope you need to give yourself enough room to fall safely.
You got it.
Okay.
The goal is to prevent the worker from hitting the ground or any other object during a fall.
This is starting to feel a bit technical.
It can be.
But I'm realizing how much thought and engineering goes into designing a safe fall arrest system.
It really is a fascinating blend of physics, engineering, and human safety.
Okay. Do we have any case studies that really drive home the importance of using fall arrest systems correctly?
We do a tragic case from 2010 involving a student named Declan Sullivan, who was filming football practice at the University of Notre Dame.
Okay.
He was on an elevated video platform when a strong gust of wind caught the platform, causing it to collapse.
Oh no, that sounds terrible. What happened?
Sadly, Declan wasn't wearing a fall arrest system and fell over 30 feet to his death.
Oh, wow.
The investigation revealed that the platform wasn't properly secured for high winds.
Right.
And there were concerns about safety procedures.
That's a heartbreaking example of how a preventable fall can have devastating consequences.
It is.
It underscores the importance of assessing weather conditions, using the right equipment, and following safety protocols to the letter.
It's a stark reminder that complacency can be deadly.
Yeah.
We can't take safety for granted.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground in this discussion about the complexities of walking and working surface safety.
We have.
But the key takeaway here is that falls are preventable with a combination of engineering controls, administrative controls, and personal vigilance.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
It's all about creating a culture of safety where everyone understands the risks and takes responsibility for preventing falls.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess we'll take a break here and we'll pick up in part 2 with even more tips and strategies for preventing falls.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody, stay tuned for part 2.
We'll see you there. It's like building a safety net with layers of protection to catch you if one fails. And a big part of that net is personal awareness.
So what does that look like in practice? I mean, we can't walk around in bubble wrap all day.
Well, you'd be surprised how effective a little mindfulness can be. It starts with being present in the moment, not letting distractions take over, but think about how many times you've tripped over something while looking at your phone.
All the time. It's like our brains go on autopilot and our feet just follow along blindly.
Exactly. So put the phone away, look where you're going, and be aware of your surroundings.
Okay, so no more texting and walking, or texting and working for that matter. What else can we do to boost our awareness?
Think about your posture and gait. Are you slouching, rushing, or carrying something that's obstructing your view? All of these things can increase your risk of tripping or slipping.
So, good posture, a steady pace, and clear vision. It's like setting ourselves up for success before we even take a step.
Exactly. And don't forget about footwear. We talked about slip resistance earlier, but it's worth repeating. Choose shoes that are appropriate for the environment and the task at hand.
Right. No smooth-soled dress shoes in the kitchen or flip-flops on a construction site. Function over fashion when it comes to safety.
Absolutely. And if you're working in an environment with specific hazards like wet floors or uneven terrain, make sure you have the right footwear to mitigate those risks.
Okay, footwear check. What about other personal protective equipment? What role does that play in preventing falls?
PPE is crucial, especially for anyone working at heights. Things like harnesses, lanyards, and helmets can literally be lifesavers. But just having the equipment isn't enough. It needs to be properly inspected, maintained, and used correctly.
So it's about having the right tools for the job and knowing how to use them effectively.
Exactly, and that's where training comes in. Again, employers have a responsibility to provide their employees with the necessary training on how to identify and avoid fall hazards, how to use safety equipment properly, and what to do in case of an emergency.
Training is like giving employees the power to protect themselves and each other. It's an investment in safety that pays dividends. Now, I know we've touched on this briefly, but I'd love to hear more about safety culture. What does that mean, and how do you create it?
That's a great question. You see, a strong safety culture is the foundation of a safe work environment. It's about creating a shared mindset where everyone from the CEO to the newest employee is committed to working safely and looking out for each other.
So it's not just about following the rules, it's about creating a workplace where safety is truly valued and prioritized.
Exactly. It's about fostering a sense of shared responsibility and accountability.
That sounds great in theory, but how do you actually make it happen? I mean, you can't just wave a magic wand and suddenly everyone's a safety champion.
You're right. It takes effort and commitment. But it starts with leadership. Management needs to set the tone by making safety a core value of the organization, by providing the necessary resources and training, and by recognizing and rewarding safe behaviors.
So it's about walking the talk, not just talking the talk, leading by example.
Exactly. And it's about open communication, creating a culture where employees feel comfortable reporting hazards, near misses, and safety concerns without fear of reprisal is crucial.
So it's about creating a safe space for open dialogue about safety. No blame, no shame.
Yes.
Just a shared commitment to continuous improvement.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of positive reinforcement. Recognizing and rewarding employees who go above and beyond to promote safety can be incredibly motivating.
It's like saying, we see you, we appreciate you, and we value your commitment to safety.
Right, it's about making safety a part of the company's DNA, not just an afterthought.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about some specific work environments that present unique safety challenges.
Yeah.
We've already talked about stairs, ramps, and ladders, but what are some other areas where falls are a major concern?
Well, loading docks are a prime example. They're often busy, congested areas with a lot of activity-heavy equipment and changes in elevation.
Right, you've got trucks backing up to the dock, forklifts, moving pallets, workers loading and unloading cargo. It's a lot to manage.
Exactly, and if a dock plate isn't properly secured or if a worker isn't paying attention, it can easily shift or slide, causing a fall.
So what's the best way to prevent accidents at loading docks?
It starts with choosing the right equipment. Make sure the dock plate or gangplank is the right size and capacity for the job. It needs to be long enough to span the gap between the dock and the truck safely and strong enough to support the weight of the load and the workers.
Okay, so no cutting corners on equipment. What else?
Secure it, properly use chain straps or other anchoring devices to prevent the plate from moving or slipping, and inspect the plate regularly for any signs of damage or wear. Never use a dock plate that's bent, cracked, or otherwise compromised.
So regular inspections are crucial, just like with ladders and scaffolding.
Absolutely. And make sure the area around the dock plate is clear of obstacles and debris. You don't want anyone tripping over something while they're trying to navigate the plate.
Good point. It's all about creating a safe and predictable pathway.
Right. And workers should be trained on the proper use of dock plates and gangplanks, including how to secure them, how to load and unload them safely, and what to do in case of an emergency.
Okay, loading docks, proper equipment secure setup, regular inspections, clear pathways, and training. Got it. What about other types of openings? I'm thinking about holes in floors or roofs or open shafts on a construction site.
Those can be extremely dangerous, especially if they're unexpected or poorly marked. The best way to prevent falls through these types of openings is to cover them. You can use plywood metal grating or even prefabricated covers specifically designed for this purpose.
So essentially, you're creating a temporary floor over the opening.
Exactly, and make sure the cover is properly secured and clearly marked so that people know it's there. You don't want someone accidentally stepping on a loose cover and falling through.
Good point. Visibility and security are key.
And if the opening is in a high-traffic area, you might want to consider using guardrails or barriers to further prevent falls. It's all about layering the protection.
Okay, openings covers guardrails, barriers, and clear markings. Got it. Now, we've talked a lot about preventing falls, but I'm curious about what happens if a fall does occur. Are there ways to minimize the impact?
There are. Yes, there are several strategies for reducing the severity of fall-related injuries. One is to reduce the distance of the fall. This can be achieved through the use of fall arrest systems, safety nets, or even guardrails that prevent a fall from a higher level to a lower one.
So it's like having a safety net under a trapeze artist. Even if they miss a catch, the net is there to break their fall.
Exactly. And another strategy is to reduce the impact force. This can be done by increasing the area over which the impact is distributed. Think about a helmet. It spreads the force of an impact over a wider area, reducing the severity of a head injury.
So it's like the difference between landing on a concrete floor versus a padded mat. The mat absorbs more of the impact, reducing the force on your body.
Precisely. And then there's the concept of reducing the energy of the impact. This can be achieved through the use of shock absorbers in fall arrest systems. They work by slowing down the descent and extending the deceleration distance, which reduces the force on the body.
So it's like having a bungee cord that gently lowers you to the ground instead of a rope that stops you abruptly.
That's a great analogy. And finally, there's the principle of increasing the time of impact. This is similar to reducing the energy of the impact, but it focuses on extending the duration of the impact force.
So instead of a sudden jolt, it's more of a gradual slowing down.
Exactly. It's like the difference between hitting a brick wall versus a haystack. The haystack gives way, extending the time of impact and reducing the force on your body.
Wow. There's a lot of physics involved in minimizing the damage of a fall. It's amazing how much thought goes into designing these safety systems.
It really is. It's all about understanding the forces at play and using that knowledge to create safer systems and practices.
Now let's talk about something we haven't touched on yet, the psychological aspects of fall prevention. I mean, we can have all the safety equipment and procedures in the world, but if people aren't in the right mindset, accidents can still happen.
That's a really important point. Human behavior plays a huge role in safety, and there are several psychological factors that can increase the risk of falls.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest culprits is complacency. We get so used to our surroundings and our routines that we stop paying attention to potential hazards.
It's like we go on autopilot, assuming everything is fine because it's always been fine before.
Exactly. And that's when accidents happen. We need to remind ourselves that even in familiar environments, things can change, and we need to be vigilant.
So no matter how many times you've walked up those stairs or crossed that loading dock, never let your guard down.
Right. And another factor is overconfidence. Sometimes people overestimate their abilities or underestimate the risks involved in a task.
Like thinking, I've done this a million times, I can do it with my eyes closed.
Exactly. And that's a recipe for disaster. We need to be honest with ourselves about our limitations and always err on the side of caution.
So humility is a safety virtue.
It really is. And then there's the issue of rushing. When we're in a hurry, we tend to take shortcuts, cut corners, and overlook potential hazards.
It's like that saying, haste makes waste, but in this case, haste can make for a broken bone.
Exactly. We need to remind ourselves that safety is more important than speed. It's better to take a few extra seconds or minutes to do things safely than to rush and risk an injury.
So slow down, be mindful, and prioritize safety over speed. What about fatigue? I know that when I'm tired, I'm not as sharp and I'm more likely to make mistakes.
Fatigue is a major safety concern. When we're tired, our reaction time slows down, our coordination suffers, our judgment becomes impaired, and we're more likely to make mistakes.
So if you're feeling sleepy or worn out, it's best to take a break and get some rest before tackling any tasks that require balance, coordination, or alertness.
Absolutely. And remember, substances like alcohol or drugs can also impair your judgment, coordination, and balance, making you much more susceptible to falls. So never work under the influence.
Right. Safety should always be the top priority. And that means being in the right frame of mind to work safely. No task is worth risking your health or well-being. Now let's shift gears and talk about some of the specific types of equipment that can be used to mitigate fall hazards. We've touched on some of these already, but I'd like to go into a little more detail.
Sounds good. Let's start with guardrails, as we discussed earlier. Guardrails are a primary line of defense for preventing falls from elevated surfaces.
Right, they're like a physical barrier that keeps people from falling over the edge.
Exactly. And OSHA has specific standards for guardrail construction and installation, so it's important to make sure that any guardrails you're using meet those standards.
Okay, so guardrails are a must-have for any elevated work area. What about other types of barriers?
Well, covers for openings are essential for preventing falls through holes in floors, roofs, and walkways. These can be anything from a simple piece of plywood to a prefabricated cover designed for a specific type of opening.
So basically anything that creates a solid barrier over the opening.
Right. And then there are overhead protections like netting or canopies. These are used to prevent objects from falling on people below.
I've seen those used on construction sites where there's a risk of tools or materials being dropped from a height.
Exactly. And barriers can also be used to keep people away from dangerous areas.
Like a fence around a deep excavation or a restricted area sign on a rooftop.
Precisely. And then there's personal fall arrest systems, which we've discussed in detail already. These are essential for anyone working at heights where the risk of falling is significant.
Okay, so we've got guardrails, covers, overhead protection barriers, and fall arrest systems. It sounds like a pretty comprehensive toolkit for fall protection.
It is, and it's important to choose the right tools for the job and to make sure that they're properly inspected, maintained, and used correctly.
But the tools are only as good as the people using them. Now, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier, the importance of housekeeping. It might seem like a small thing, but it can make a big difference in preventing falls.
Absolutely. Good housekeeping is essential for creating a safe work environment. It's about keeping walkways clear of clutter and debris, cleaning up spills immediately, and storing materials properly.
So it's about creating a clean, organized, and predictable work environment where potential hazards are minimized.
Exactly. And it's not just about preventing falls. Good housekeeping also helps to prevent fires, reduce the spread of germs, and improve overall morale.
So it's a win-win all around. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this discussion. Any final thoughts before we wrap up part 2?
I think the key takeaway here is that falls are preventable by understanding the hazards, taking the right precautions, using the right equipment, and fostering a culture of safety. We can significantly reduce the risk of falls and create a safer work environment for everyone.
Well said, and remember, safety is an ongoing journey, not a destination. It's a continuous process of learning, adapting, and improving. So let's keep the conversation going. And let's keep learning, sharing, and working together to make our workplaces safer. Now, I'm curious, are there any specific types of falls or scenarios that we haven't covered yet that you think are important to address?
Well, we've touched on a lot of the common ones, but one area that often gets overlooked is falls from vehicles.
You mean like delivery drivers or construction workers getting in and out of trucks?
Exactly. It seems like such a simple thing, but it's actually a leading cause of workplace injuries. People often rush, don't use the proper handholds, or jump down instead of climbing down carefully.
So it's another case of complacency and overconfidence leading to accidents.
Right. We need to remind ourselves that even seemingly routine tasks can be hazardous if we're not paying attention and taking the proper precautions.
So what's the key to preventing falls from vehicles?
It starts with awareness. Be mindful of the height of the vehicle, the condition of the steps or ladder, and any potential hazards on the ground. Always use 3 points of contact when getting in or out of the vehicle, 2 hands in 1 foot or 2 feet in 1 hand.
So slow down, be deliberate, and maintain those 3 points of contact.
Exactly, and never jump down from a vehicle. It might seem like a quick and easy way to get down, but it puts a tremendous amount of stress on your joints and increases your risk of injury.
Okay, no jumping. Got it. What about falls from ladders? We talked about ladder safety earlier, but are there any specific types of falls that are particularly common with ladders?
Yes, one of the most common scenarios is overreaching. People often try to stretch too far to reach something instead of climbing down and repositioning the ladder.
Right, it's tempting to save a few seconds by stretching, but it's not worth the risk of falling.
Exactly. And another common mistake is carrying tools or materials while climbing a ladder. It's best to have someone hand you what you need or to use a tool belt or bucket to keep your hands free.
So keep your hands free, avoid overreaching, and always maintain those 3 points of contact. Those are the golden rules of ladder safety.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the importance of choosing the right ladder for the job. There are different types of ladders for different tasks, and using the wrong ladder can increase your risk of falling.
Okay, so choose the right ladder, use it correctly, and always prioritize safety over convenience. Now I want to shift gears a bit and talk about something that's often overlooked in safety discussions, the role of footwear.
Footwear is incredibly important, especially when it comes to preventing slips and falls. The type of shoes you wear can make a big difference in your traction and stability.
I imagine a construction worker needs different footwear than an office worker, right?
Absolutely. The best footwear for a particular job will depend on the environment, the tasks being performed, and any potential hazards present. For example, if you're working in a wet or slippery environment, you'll want shoes with a slip-resistant sole made from a material like rubber or polyurethane.
So think about where you're working and what you're doing and choose your shoes accordingly.
Exactly. And pay attention to the condition of your shoes. Worn out soles, loose laces, or damaged heels can all increase your risk of slipping or tripping.
So inspect your shoes regularly and replace them when they start to show signs of wear and tear.
Right. And if you're working in an environment with specific hazards like sharp objects or chemicals, make sure your shoes have the appropriate protection. For example, steel-toe boots are essential on construction sites to protect your feet from falling objects.
Okay, footwear, it's more than just a fashion statement. It's an important piece of safety equipment. Now, I'm curious about something you mentioned earlier, that falls are a leading cause of occupational deaths. Are there any specific industries that are particularly high risk when it comes to falls?
Yes, construction is consistently ranked as one of the most dangerous industries, and falls are a major contributor to that statistic.
Why is that?
Construction sites are often dynamic and unpredictable environments. There are changes in elevation, uneven surfaces, open shafts, scaffolding ladders, and a lot of heavy equipment moving around.
It sounds like a recipe for potential fall hazards.
It can be, yes, and that's why it's so important for construction workers to be aware of the hazards, follow safety protocols, and use the appropriate safety equipment.
Okay, construction is high risk. No surprise there.
What are some other industries where falls are a major concern?
Well, logging and forestry are also very dangerous. Workers are often in remote locations working with heavy equipment and dealing with uneven terrain and falling trees.
Right, so it's a combination of environmental hazards and the nature of the work itself.
Exactly. And then there are industries like transportation, warehousing, and manufacturing, where falls from loading docks, ladders, and elevated platforms are common. So basically any industry where workers are working at heights or dealing with uneven surfaces or heavy equipment is at risk for falls.
Exactly, and it's important to remember that falls can happen anywhere, not just in high-risk industries.
Right, a fall can happen in an office, a retail store, a restaurant, or even at home.
Exactly. That's why it's so important for everyone to be aware of the hazards, take the right precautions, and create a culture of safety in all aspects of our lives.
So it's not just about workplace safety, it's about overall safety awareness. We need to be thinking about fall prevention, whether we're at work at home or out in the community.
Well said, and I think that's a great note to end on. Safety is everyone's responsibility. By working together, we can create a safer world for ourselves, our families, and our communities.
Thanks for joining us on the Key Safety Talks podcast. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more insightful discussions on workplace safety. Until next time, stay safe out there.